Sunday morning cold, eyes on the score, touchdown dance ball, craving for more. Friends are calling, trades are on fire. Rookies falling, championship desire. Fantasy football fever, chasing the dream. Top of the leaderboard, we're the winning team.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Healers program. I'm your host, Dustin Brown. The Fantasy Football Healers have brought you Zach with Breaking the Quarterback Code and Zach, Wide Receiver One Room. And we bring you Gabe Holt with his platform, The Gambling Whisperer. And he's going to be sharing his Discord here today. You can find Gabe at Gabe is a Holt 33 on Twitter X. Welcome in.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here, Gabe. I've known you here now for a couple years. I know you've built this platform, and I would love for you to kind of share how you got into building your own platform. And then not only that, but like how you got into fantasy football and how you became a fantasy football fan.
Yeah, so with the sports betting side of things, I started off, it was the year of the COVID. I signed up for DraftKings one day and got the free bets. I was very fortunate to turn it into a pretty good amount of money just on the 20 bucks I put in. And it kind of just grew from there. I got to a point where at that time I was really interested in college basketball. I was already watching all the games before I was doing any of that stuff and looking into all the analytics and decided to start building systems with it. And it just kind of grew from there into other sports with it. In terms of the fantasy football, I started that back in like 2019, I think was my first league. At first, I had no idea what I was doing in it. And then as soon as I started getting into the betting, I kind of opened my eyes to it and I started taking it a lot more serious and had some pretty good success since then.
Okay, so you kind of got into the betting and fantasy football around the same time frame.
Yes. Yep. So it was probably the betting side of things first. Like I did fantasy, had no idea what was going on, and then once I started looking at a bunch of data with things, I was like, "Oh, this makes this fantasy stuff a lot easier." And since then, it's been one of my favorite things to do.
So you found a correlation between your fantasy football teams and how you draft and your betting market?
So there's a ton of correlation in it, especially with the data that I look at every week with it. I'm looking at defensive efficiency, offensive efficiency, what teams are good defending the run, which teams are good defending the pass, vice versa, all that stuff. And you can get some pretty good insight from that.
Well, we do have a football game here tonight with the Giants and the Eagles, and there's a lot of discrepancies with how these teams are kind of going forward. The Eagles are having some trouble with A.J. Brown and with Devonta Smith. They're not getting the ball. They're being very vocal. The coaching staff is just acting kind of nonchalant. Yeah, we know this is a problem, but they haven't really decided like how they're going to figure it out. They did pass a little bit more last week, but even A.J. Brown, it was only his second highest in yards, and it was only like 43 yards for that game against the Broncos in a really weird game. And then Saquon Barkley hasn't been as effective either this year because they're not throwing the ball. There's less touchdown equity. And Saquon Barkley, he hasn't had any like 20-yard plus runs all season long. He did have a wheel route last week that was like 40 yards and a touchdown. But outside of that, nothing greater than 20 yards. And then you have the Giants, who they've lost their primary wide receiver and Neighbors for the season. Darius Slayton, he's now injured. And then they had switched over to Jackson Dart. And they just kind of want to just run the ball with Jackson Dart and Scadaboo. And this guy, I don't think he's going to hold up all season with how much running that they're doing.
No.
What do you think on how this game is going to go tonight?
That's an interesting point about Scadaboo. So if you actually go back and watch him when he was in college at Arizona State, so he was one of my favorite players to bet on last year because he's just a bulldozer out there. He just runs people over, has really no care of what he's doing to his body, it seems like most of the time. He's a pretty fun player to watch, but I agree with a lot of what you said with it. And I expect the Eagles tonight to try to get way more involved in the pass game than what they have been. They have a lot of pretty upset players right now. I think you also brought up a good point in the touchdown inequity that's going on. I know at the end of the day it's about winning games, but I feel like Saquon Barkley has to feel some frustration knowing that a lot of those goal line touches are just going to Jalen Hurts with the tush push that they do all the time. Um,
Yep.
so I think they have a lot to kind of get sorted out to kind of calm some nerves and get everyone on the right page on their team. Because it seems like a lot of tension with it, which is why I think tonight there's some good opportunities to exploit that with some bets on it.
Yep, absolutely. And before we go forward here, Gabe, I'd like to just kind of point out that if you kind of look up here in the corner, there's a QR code that'll take you directly to Gabe's Discord that we're going to be kind of just going right into it here. And so I'm going to get this available here on the screen on YouTube. And Gabe can kind of talk us through on this. And so if we look here on the left-hand side, Gabe, do you want to talk us through on how your platform is set up?
Yeah, so once you get into the Discord, that left side the list of different options is kind of the main way to navigate through the Discord. Those are all the different sports that I bet on. The top three are the main ones. There's a couple other ones like the A1 picks and the Kmart parlays. Those are just other individuals in the Discord who contribute to it. But essentially, when I go to post a bet, if it's a college football one, I put it in there and you get notified that it came through. Same thing with the NFL, college basketball, etc. The long shot lottos on the side is where I put a lot of the fun parlays that I'd put on, or just really in general anything that has higher odds. So like there's a first touchdown bet in there tonight that we can talk over, and that's essentially kind of how it works in there. As long as you don't mess with the settings, you should get notified with every single play that gets posted in there. On the long shot ones, usually the wager amount will get posted in the screenshot with it, and then on the other ones, I will just put how many units go on it. A unit is just kind of a standardized amount of money that you would place on each bet.
And so when you're going through the different platforms, it sounded like that you like DraftKings. Is that what you started with?
Yeah, so if I started with DraftKings, however, I use them less frequently nowadays.
Okay. What platforms do you like to look at in regards to the betting odds?
So right now, the book that I'm using the most frequently is called Circa Sports. That's mainly just due to the new tax that Illinois just started. It's based on how much revenue each of the sports books go through. So if you look at the screenshot that's on there, there's like the pass through of Illinois per wager tax. So like every wager that you place, you get taxed 50 cents on there, unless you're betting above a certain amount with it. So that's
Mhm.
why I don't use DraftKings and FanDuel as frequently, because they bring in the most revenue and they started adding that little tax to it.
Okay.
In terms of good sites to like sort through different odds and spreads on, one that I use all the time, Action Network, on their cheaper option with it. I think it's like $99 a year. It gives you insight into like all the different spreads that the different books are offering, so it will highlight which ones have the most value for it, and it also gives you a ton of other information that's pretty valuable.
Okay. Very good. So it's kind of like a cheat code to basically see like where you're getting the best value at for each of the bets that you can place versus having to
Yes.
look back and forth between each platform and spending the extra time.
Yes, so it saves a lot of time, and again, there's a bunch of other data it will give you, such as like how much money is getting bet on each side of a game, what percentage of the bets are going on each side of the game, and I think if you're past just that phase of just betting for fun and actually trying to do it for money, it's a very good investment to make.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit here, Gabe, about the bet that you have here for this game against the Eagles versus the Giants.
Yeah, so this one is a first touchdown score. It's one of my favorite of the lotto type bets to place. And I think this one tonight, even though the odds are pretty high on it, I think it has a better value than that. And mainly because I expect the Eagles to become more involved in the pass game, like we just kind of talked about. Obviously, they want to make A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith happy with it, but when you're on the goal line, you're just trying to get the ball to the open man. And I expect Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown to have a little bit more coverage on them if they're in a situation where they're trying to pass the ball. It might allow Jahan Dotson to kind of sneak open and get that first score. Not worth a huge amount of risk on it because the odds are 52 to 1. But I think it's a fun little way to kind of take advantage of what I think the Eagles are going to try to do tonight.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny here that you've got Jahan Dotson actually scoring the first touchdown here versus A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith or even Saquon.
Yes, and so this is banking on they'll be in a situation where they're not trying to run the ball, so hopefully not on the 1 or 2 yard line with it. And if you just look at the odds on Devontae Smith and AJ Brown to score it, they were like in the range of like 12 to like 18 to 1, I believe. And I just don't think that's a ton of value for a first touchdown scorer bet, especially if
Mhm.
you look at what usually happens in the primetime games. A lot of times it's not the person you expect it to be. Um, Weird things happen in primetime. It's a trend that I think this year, most of the time, most of the odds on the first touchdown scorer are above 20 to 1.
Okay. What kind of odds are you looking for? Is that about 20 to 1 or greater when it comes to like the first touchdown scored, whether it's NFL or college?
So I would say it depends on the situation with it. There have been times where I've placed ones as low as like 4 to 5 to 1 based on what I think the game script's going to be. When I like to take them just straight up and not in a parlay or a round robin, I usually like them to have a little bit higher odds. And that's just because there's more value with it. If you break it down and there's throughout the season, there'd be what, like 54, 60 primetime games total. All you got to do is hit two, and you're up quite a bit of money with it. So it's something that there's wiggle room. You don't have to play the safe odds on it every single time. You can still make quite a bit of money off of it.
And Gabe, I know you're really busy with these platforms. You've got college basketball here, you've got college football, you've got the NFL as your primary resources for this Discord.
Mhm.
About what time frame do you normally look up in regards to like uploading some of your ideas on some of the betting market? Are you doing it like the day of, a day before, kind of when you've got time during the week? Do you have a certain date or time?
So I usually base it around kind of my schedule with it. So I get done with work Tuesdays and Thursdays early. Tuesdays is when I really start digging into things with it, especially for college football. College football, I don't need as much data from the betting markets to kind of make my decisions with. I'm not looking at how many people are betting on each game as much with college football, just because I trust my system a lot with it. Versus NFL, I like to have a look at that data before I do it. Um, the NFL is a league of parity, and a lot of things happen that a lot of people don't expect to happen with it. And a lot of times you want to align your side on, or align yourself on the side that the sportsbook companies need to win. They make a ton of money off of people betting on the NFL and not knowing what they're doing with it. And I think that's a pretty valuable piece to it. If you align yourself with that side more often, you'll come out of the head more often.
Are you generally looking at more of like the first touchdown scoring type of bets, or are you looking for like highest passing yards, like over unders? What sort of bets do you generally like to do?
So every week I will make touchdown score bets and then first touchdown with that, and then a lot of the against the spread and the totals with it. I would say the majority of my picks in general for the NFL are against the spread. And then I place a lot of unders bets on the NFL just because they have a ton of value. With it. If you look at the data all time, the unders are hitting at a really high rate compared to the overs on it. Not many people want to sit and watch a defensive slugfest, so they tend to bet the over just because of that. It gives the under a ton of value. Um,
Okay.
so that's a good little tidbit to keep in mind if you're betting the NFL.
When you're seeing a team that is valued like 10 points over what the other team's going to score, does that give you like a flag and say, "Hey, I need to bet on this," whether it's above or below that 10-point advantage?
So again, that's going to depend on the situation. So if I see that in a divisional game, so say like the spread tonight was like 10 and a half, 12 and a half, something like that, uh, I would automatically go think about the underdog. But the divisional games tend to be closer than non-divisional games.
Hmm.
So that's always something that I'm taking note of. With if I see a spread that looks funky, I like to take a deeper dive into that. Now say it is a non-divisional game, and there's a pretty wide point spread with it. I would say with that, it depends on what situation the teams are in. So I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago, the Bills Saints game.
Hmm.
Ended up being a lot closer than what a lot of people think, and that was just a game that I just stayed away from, just because I don't think there was a ton of value on that spread either way. Saints really bad, Bills at home, like you like them, but uh, again, you see a spread that high, it's kind of scary. So it depends a lot on the situation. There's times where if I see it, I'm automatically think like this is going to be a good side. Other times I'll just stay away.
Well, I think last week, last Thursday Night Football, you were saying about how close that game was going to be and how the Rams were going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. I think you had Devontae Adams like scoring fairly well in your model.
Yep.
It come to find out that I know I was completely shocked with how that game was because of all the injuries that the 49ers had. I didn't think they had the gas in the tank to compete, let alone win that game. Like, how
Yeah.
did you figure that out?
So that one was, again, I'm looking at the divisional game. Even when there is a wide discrepancy in talent, those games tend to be a little bit closer than what people think. Especially if you look at the Los Angeles Rams. Yes, it was a home game for them, but they don't have the fan turnout there. If you looked at that stadium, it was half 49ers fans there. Additionally,
Definitely.
just based off the game script, I thought the 49ers would have to be more aggressive passing the ball just to kind of keep up with it. And that ties into one of the bigger bets I had over the week with like really kind of digging into Kendrick Bourne in that game. I thought that he would get involved quite a bit. I played his first touchdown scorer, which unfortunately didn't hit. But he racked up. It was, I think, almost 140 yards of receiving yards in that game. Um, that's one of the ones where I think I had the right read on it. It was just the wrong result.
Mhm.
Um, but it's again just kind of looking at what the model says and kind of historically how that game goes and just kind of whatever other contextual information I can get on that game, kind of help shape that decision.
Yep. And for our viewers here, you had a $50 bet that Kendrick Bourne was going to be the first touchdown scorer for the San Francisco 49ers game at the Rams. And then you also had Njoku as the first touchdown scorer against the Minnesota Vikings in London. And I mean, that's quite a payout if that ends up hitting. I mean, talk about a lotto hit.
Yep, and that one was a free bet from a deposit bonus I got, and I like to use my free bets on something a little bit more risky. There's really no risk with it. You're not going to lose 50 actual dollars if it doesn't hit. And if you look at that one, the Njoku was pretty involved in the pass game, that game against the Vikings.
Absolutely.
Again, I think it was just probably could have found a different way to play it that would have had a better chance of hitting. But I think at that odds, it's something that if I had a $50 free bet, I probably would have played it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, for the listeners, a $50 free bet could have made you 13,500. So that's quite a load of money to on return.
Yep, and still waiting for the day that I'm able to hit one of those. I've been so close on a couple, but I've had some pretty other good hits, just not one of that magnitude just yet.
So that was one that the process was there, just you didn't get the results. Now you can talk to us about this one also with the Cleveland Browns against the Minnesota Vikings that actually did hit.
Yeah, so with that one, again, Njoku, I was expecting him to be involved in the pass game quite a bit. He's a big target. Dylan Gabriel's first start. I just kind of liked his chances to get pretty involved, and I think he finished with 5 or 6 receptions with it. Justin Jefferson, that one was a boosted odds on it. They lowered his line by like 10. I don't think he's really had many games where he's gone below 60 with it, and so that's a high value thing to add into it. Um, Jordan Mason, looking at him, I thought if the Vikings got near the goal line that they'd be using him to get the ball in the end zone. He had a pretty rough game. It seemed
Yeah,
like,
very rough game. He looked
but he
like he
was
was going to
still.
get out of the game there early on.
Yeah, I know, and I got lucky on that one, I think. But he was able to punch it in, and the Judkins one, I thought the Browns would try to really open up the rush game to kind of make things a little bit easier on Dylan Gabriel. It's the first time starting, you kind of want the other side of the ball to get going, the rush attack, just to kind of give him some more time. And he had I think a 37-yard run in the first quarter, and he just kind of cashed that with ease throughout the game. So that was a relatively no sweat one. All of them hit cash pretty early on it. So
Well, as a
um,
Vikings fan, I was sweating that game, Gabe, in a different way. What you might not know if you didn't watch the game is that Judkins had a booming run for a touchdown that was like 50 yards and a touchdown that ended up getting called back on a hold. And so
oh,
his big day could have been even bigger, and it would have been
wow.
quite the upset for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, so I kind of had that game on the side when I was driving back from Wisconsin, so I didn't get the greatest eyes on it. I was just kind of checking in on the stats every now and then, and I did not realize he had that run that got called back.
Yeah, he definitely did. And then Dylan Gabriel, he seems like he really likes the tight ends. I think if you're going to take something out from that Browns game, is that Dylan Gabriel, he looked like he was comfortable with throwing the ball. He got the ball out of his hands pretty quick, and he really targeted in on both tight ends, Njoku and Fannin Jr.
Yeah, and I think if you watched how he played at Oregon, his last year, that's not too surprising with it. He liked throwing to wide receivers that were bigger targets. And also he spent more time trying to like process the play than you would typically see in a quarterback. So I think I I haven't looked too much into the models with it, but I would expect it to show the tight ends have quite a bit of value right now in the Browns offense.
Absolutely. And Judy really hasn't hit all that well so far this year.
Yeah, I didn't get to see much of what he did in that game, but I don't know. The Browns are just kind of an interesting team this year. I don't pay too much attention to them, and I'll be
I
interested
don't
to
know.
see how
I
it.
think there's just a lot of interest in regards to like the quarterback carousel. I read something
Yes,
yesterday that said that they're paying 8 different quarterbacks right now, and about like half of those quarterbacks aren't even on the team anymore.
yep, I saw that same thing. Yeah, they definitely have a lot of drama in the quarterback room with Sanders and all that.
Oh, there's so much drama.
Yeah.
There's a couple other bets that you have here, but with the Eagles and Giants for the over under, it looks like the over under is 40 and a half. And are you betting the over or the under on this one?
So that one would be the over. So in the Discord for the over under bets, if there's an O next to it, that counts for over. A U next to it would be under with it. And with that one, I think it's just a lot of game script with it. Eagles games have been relatively lower scoring just because they've been running the ball so much. I expect them to get a little bit more aggressive in the pass game to kind of speed things up a little bit. Clock might be stopped a little bit more with the pass attempts as well. So I think it just kind of creates a scenario where I could see this game going over. Additionally, with that one, if you look at the bet splits on it, uh, a lot of people I think just kind of looked back at how the Eagles have been doing and thought the under was a really good play on it because they haven't been scoring in bunches this year. So the under was getting a significant number of the bets, but not much of the money on them. Whereas the over was getting not many bets, but a ton of money on it, which tells me that the people that are betting more money have a better understanding of what's going on, are taking the over in this game. So that kind of correlated with what my thoughts on it were, which made me place the bet.
Well, and do you think that also kind of goes along with like what the narrative is? The Giants have all these injuries and they're just running the ball, and then you've got the Eagles. It's like, oh, everyone's in disarray. You got the Super Bowl champions, and everyone's kind of fighting and biting each other's head off, and they're just running the ball and not really throwing the ball. Like that, I think that kind of gets in all of us viewers' heads, and then it makes it really easy for us to say, oh, 40 points. Like, how is this game going to go to 40 points? And you're saying like,
Mhm.
hey, maybe we need to maybe think the opposite on this one.
Yep, and so that's a lot of the scenarios I'm looking for in the NFL. And that's because a lot of times it's a thing that you don't think is going to happen that ends up actually happening with it. I just kind of think the pieces are there for this game to go a little bit over that. Now, I'm not thinking it's going to be like a 50, 60 point shootout, but I could see a scenario where this game gets to 42, 43 points.
Kind of sounds like the George Costanza thing, like I'm unemployed and I live with my parents, and then all of a sudden the ladies are just like all over them, and then it's like, oh, this is working. If everything that I've done is the wrong thing, then the opposite of what I do must be the right thing.
Who are you, George Costanza?
I'm the opposite of every guy you've ever met.
Yes. and
Oh man,
and with
I really like Seinfeld. Um,
um
you had talked to me prior to coming on that you have some success with the NFL, but you really see a lot of your success in college football. And so, can you just kind of share with us, like, basically what your experience has been in regards to like the betting markets over the last few years in regards to college football versus NFL versus college basketball, and kind of how you've become better as the years gone on?
So if I break it down between the three and look at what I've been most successful with, so NFL I've always had mixed success with like the spreads and the over unders with it. But if I look at a lot of like my really big wins, so the small amount of money that's turned into a lot of money with like the lotto type of bets, it's been through the NFL with like touchdown scores with it. If I look at college football, um, that one, I really like the model I have with it. I find it to be pretty accurate. And it's really paid off over the last couple of years with results against the spread with it. Additionally, I spend a lot more time watching college football, digging through the data on it, just because I actually have a team I root for in college football. I'm a big Illinois fan, whereas the NFL, I'm kind of a man without a team. I always say my favorite team is my fantasy teams in the NFL. So I think just that side of it just makes me more in tune with the sport. And then college basketball is a sport that I have followed very, very closely since I was a little kid. There is a site with analytics called KenPom that I've been subscribed to since I was like 10 years old. So I just have a lot of experience digging through that. I pay a ton of attention to college basketball. That one has been by far my most successful with it. In terms of against the spread with like futures bets, so like betting on who I think the national champion is going to be like prior to the year starting, I've had a lot of good results with that. And that one I think I have a very strong system on with it.
So I was going to ask you, like, betting for your team, betting against your team, betting within your divisions. Have you had any, like, are you for or are you against that? Like, I know some people, like, it's like the luck kind of thought process. Like, you don't want to taint your team, you don't want to taint the division.
So fortunately in Illinois, you can't bet on an Illinois or a college in the state of Illinois, like on your phone. And I think that probably saves me quite a bit of money because I do like betting on Illinois for college football and college basketball. Every year I place a bet on them to win the national championship and win the Big Ten and all that if I'm traveling out of the state with it. And I'm sure my return on that is not very, very good with it. I think though in general, like
Are there
you
fun
should,
bets? You
yes,
got
they're
to have
fun
fun with some
bets.
of the bets too.
Yep, and I just think, man, if they actually won something, that'd just be like the greatest night ever. My team won, and I get to take home some money.
Yep.
For if I like use Illinois as an example for like college football, I selectively bet on them. There's times where I think they have a lot of value, and at times that I think that I wouldn't touch this game, even though I'm like a huge fan of them. If you are able to be honest with yourself and not just go in blindly and say this is my team, they're going to win every time, and know when you should actually take the side against them, and then I'm all for betting on your team. But if you don't have that discipline, I would probably stay away from it just because it's an easy way to lose a lot of money.
Yep. I tend to be a pessimistic or maybe a realistic Minnesota Vikings fan. We just have had a lot of heartache, and it seems like when I'm betting for my team, that's when we lose. And then if I bet for or against a team that's in our division, like the Bears or Packers or even the Lions, and it always goes the wrong way for me. So I've just kind of tried to kind of lean away from the NFC North if I can get away with it, because I just feel like I've got too many of my own thoughts and too much of my own heart into it, and that's really the wrong way to look at it when it comes to betting.
Yes, and nothing is worse than betting on your team and they lose, and then now you're down money and your team lost. It's not a good feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I placed a bet a few years ago, and this would have been it ended up being the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs the first go around.
Hmm.
And May of that year, well before the season started, well before the preseason even started, I had a $15 kind of bonus bet, kind of like you said, hey, I want to get some good odds. And so I was looking for odds, and really I like betting on the NFL because I'm more passionate about the NFL and football
Hmm.
as a whole. And so I had placed a bet on what I thought was the Eagles starting to ascend. They had a lot of things that were going in their place, and this is right around the time frame. I think that they just got maybe AJ Brown around this time frame, and I'm like, okay, I really like what they're going to do here. So I placed a $15 bet down for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. Coming all the way into about halftime of that Super Bowl, the Eagles were looking to win that game
Hmm.
against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arizona. And if you remember correctly, this game was played in Arizona, where they have this football field that is literally brought in and
Hmm.
out on a rail system. And they're always saying like how great that their grass is and how perfect everything is. But for this particular game, they decided for some reason that we're going to have this experimental grass that was as slick can get, completely took away the number one defense of the Eagles, which ended up
Hmm.
allowing Kansas City to get their first Super Bowl win with Mahomes.
But I remember that being a huge talking point after the game too, and like I don't know why they would think that the Super Bowl is a convenient time to experiment with something.
Well, and this was around the time frame that people were starting to see that there was a script maybe involved with the NFL, and I hope that's
Hmm.
not the case for our sake. You know, we don't want it to be like a WWE type of system, but technically the NFL is listed as entertainment and it is not listed as sport.
Interesting. And I know a lot of people that think conspiracy-wise that it is a scripted sport, but I just don't think I buy it. I think there's too many moving pieces to script what we see on TV that
There
games every
certainly is
week.
a lot of moving pieces, and it'd be really hard to control.
Mhm.
And like, who knows and who doesn't know? I think that'd be quite challenging.
Yes. And I just think the reason why we see the results that we do that make people believe it's rigged or have those conspiracy theories is just it is a sport where the talent level is way up here and that can just cause a lot of random results sometimes.
We were talking about rookies a lot in the off season, and so like when you're looking at rookies coming into the NFL, and you're really big with like the college football and kind of looking that through, does that help you when it comes to like rookie drafts?
So yes, I think that helps me a lot. If I look at like this year, like Abuka, he was someone I was very, very high up coming out of Ohio State. I think right now he's like wide receiver number 3 in terms of fantasy with it. I thought he had a lot of the good pieces with it, and I think he just kind of he himself got lucky with some of the injury situation that's going on in Tampa Bay. That's kind of boosted him up there pretty quick with it. But I think he's a very skilled wide receiver, and I think if he keeps it up, he can be a very valuable asset in fantasy for a long
Well, if
time.
I'm not mistaken, doesn't he have like the most reception yards from the Ohio State,
I believe so. Yes.
and maybe
Yep.
touchdowns? I'm not for sure on that one, but definitely the yards.
Yeah. So yeah, he was a very dominant wide receiver at Ohio State.
And it just seems like they've kind of turned into the wide receiver U.
Yes, yes, and if I looked back at some of my other data, and like another good example, so like Puka Nacua when he was at BYU, BYU was one of those teams that was always on late at night on those Saturdays, and I watched a ton of them. And I think 3 years ago he was one of their top wide receivers, and I think they finished like 9-3 against the spread. They were like one of my favorite teams, so I had eyes on them a lot. And I was like, man, I think this Puka kid's going to be a really good NFL player, and like look where he's at now. He
Yeah.
went from like a 6th round pick to wide receiver 1 so far this year.
Yeah, and then you're probably just scooping him up off the waiver wire or getting him right there at the end of the third or fourth round in some of your dynasty leagues.
Yep, so I was able to pick him up in 2 of my dynasty leagues because of that. It's paid off quite a bit.
Very nice. I think let's maybe get into, Gabe, a few other games that are coming up this weekend. We can kind of touch base on maybe some of the Sunday games or some of the Monday games, or if you have any college games that you want to talk about, you can.
Yeah, okay, so I wrote down, I think it's 10 of the best bets for NFL based on what my system has kind of came out with. There's some player props in it, as well as a couple against the spread. So I'll start at the top. So the one that my system like highlighted the best odds of hitting was Michael Penix over 215.5 passing yards. But it estimates his total to be at 247. So that's 30 yards of value there, which if you do like daily fantasy, like on Sundays, you like draft a roster using the cash that they set aside for it or whatever. I think he'd be a good high value quarterback to pick up for the week. I think he's pretty cheap when I looked at him. He didn't cost much.
Yeah,
Another
and they
one,
really they've been one of the most run heavy teams in the NFL.
yes, and
Falcons.
that ties into I think Bijan Robinson this week over on his receiving yards. I expect him to get more involved in the pass game a little bit. They're set at 26.5. And my model is predicting him to be about 38. And so I think that'd be a good combo to pair. Let's see. Another quarterback and skilled position player. So Bo Nix over on pass attempts. I think that's the early morning game on Sunday.
In London
Yes. Yep.
against the Jets.
Yes. And there was also a side on the Jets that I liked in terms of the player props with it. So on the Broncos side of it, I had Evan Ingram over 21.5 receiving yards. My model is predicting him to be over 30 with it. And then looking at Bo Nix pass attempts, it has him at 30.5. Or the odds right now are set at 30.5, and I have him at 34.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess we'll go to the other side
You
of the
think you
game.
have the Jets in the same game?
Yes. So in that same game, so I know with that one, the Broncos they play a lot of man defense right now. So I think that's going to really open up the kind of opportunity for Justin Fields to scramble some. So I really like his under on pass attempts. It's set at 31.5. As well as I like playing his anytime touchdown. It's plus 260, and I think that number is just way off. And so that was one of the ones I had parlayed with a couple other touchdown bets that I liked on him.
Did you have Fields for a touchdown also on that one, or did you have just
Yep.
his rushing?
Yep. And so I had him as a touchdown on it.
I mean,
I
yeah.
think his rush yards. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was, but there was like slight value on it, but not enough that I would consider it something worth betting on.
So that one was a little bit more on the iffy train. It's like
Yep.
it kind of increases your risk for missing out on a parlay.
Correct. And so like the way that that one was using Rhythm, one of the apps I use to kind of break down different odds and kind of predict the scores of the games and kind of the game script of it. I think his over on rush yards, it was like a 56% chance is what it was calculating on there versus his pass attempts, since it was projecting him to only have like 23 pass attempts. That's a pretty higher edge at like 73, 74%.
Well, and I think there's things to say too. Like we're starting to see the Justin Fields getting pulled for some of these games. I mean, how often have we seen Tyrod Taylor already this year? We've seen him in like 2 of 5 games, I think.
Yep, and I know he had I think it was a concussion in one of the games,
Yeah,
and
his
then
helmet had flung back and hit the ground, and he did get pulled for a
hmm
concussion.
yeah,
And he might have missed the next game with
yes,
Tyrod.
yes, yep, I
And then last game, he ended up coming back in, Tyrod Taylor, because they were just getting completely blown away.
right, and I also think that's why it gives some value on his under on pass attempts. I think the Broncos are a pretty good team, better than what their record might show right now. I think they're 3-2, but they just went in, knocked off the Eagles, and I think they can move the ball pretty efficiently against the Jets. And if it gets into a blowout, they'll probably pull Fields early again, and he's probably not even going to get close to that pass attempt number.
Well, now that we're on the subject here, I actually had the Broncos winning the Super Bowl this year, and Colton, he has the Buffalo Bills winning the
hmm
Super Bowl. Did you place a bet on who the Super Bowl winner is going to be for the NFL?
So my system, it really liked the Buffalo Bills, and so I placed some on it, but I don't know if I see it. So that was
They're
just
the,
kind
they're
of a
the
trust
Vikings
them
of the
on that.
AFC.
Right, and they've been head like up near the favorites to win the Super Bowl the last couple of years, and they just can't get past Mahomes. But with the start the Chiefs has, he might not have to run into them in the playoffs.
That's true. And then what I thought with the Bills versus the Broncos too, I thought it was a little bit more lucrative in
hmm
regards to placing the bet with the Broncos over the Bills, because the Bills, like you said, they seemed like they were like the top three when it came to who was going to win the Super Bowl.
So I think they closed at the end as the odds-on favorite to
Oh, is
win.
that right?
Yep, which I can check right now, but I think they are still the favorite.
Okay, interesting. So you're telling me that Indiana Jones and the Colts aren't favored right now?
That's a no, but their odds have certainly increased over the last couple of weeks, which
Absolutely. I think
I
it's been
have.
an awesome storyline to see Daniel Jones just completely reviving his career with the best offensive line that he's ever had, the most weapons that he's had in the receiving game. Tyler Warren has been an elite tight end as a rookie
Mhm.
for him, and Jonathan Taylor has been supreme. If you drafted
Yep.
Jonathan Taylor in the first or second round, like, you're doing it right in fantasy football this year.
Yep. And Daniel Jones has been someone that I was always high on him coming out of college, and then he was a disappointment at the Giants. But I always thought he was a good quarterback.
Mhm.
And I still have him. I think in 2 or 3 of my leagues, I held on to him even after they traded him away.
Yeah, I think people just kind of remember the kind of the breakaway. I got to play in my head like the breakaway run. He was completely clear to run in for the end zone, and the turf monster gets him, and he's
Uh
like
huh.
tripping over himself, and just trying to remember like all these bloopers when it comes to Daniel Jones, and I think it's just everyone forgets like he really didn't have anybody to throw the ball to. I mean, Odell Beckham
Right.
wasn't there for all that much time with him, and I don't think he was there with Neighbors, was he? And if he was, it was only for a short time.
Last I think he
Well,
had
last
hit
year he was
last
with
year.
Neighbors
Yeah.
for a little bit of time, but
Yep.
they cut the cord pretty quick.
Yep. Yeah. And I just think he was in a bad situation with the Giants. and that's why I'm kind of concerned with them already moving to Jackson Dart right away. I think they need to give him some more time to just kind of develop. Um,
I don't
just with
think
their
Dart's going to make it through the next couple games. If they keep
mm,
just plowing him forward, he's going to
yeah.
get nicked up and broken before too long. And then now they're back in the same situation that they were at the beginning of the season with Russell Wilson or
Mm-hmm.
Jameis Winston as a quarterback
Yeah, but they'd have
in
Russell
no
Wilson throwing
direction.
again. Exactly. That's why I think they need to be careful with them. Give them just some time to develop. I wouldn't throw them right in right away.
Well, and even just before we came on, I saw something on X that basically said that the Giants have already made the decision that they're going to move away from their GM and their head coach. It's just a matter of when. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's hard to say like what's truthful when it comes to X, but it's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's getting you thinking.
yeah, and I mean they've had a lot of disappointing seasons lately, and
Yep.
they'd probably benefit from a change.
Do you have any other bets that you're excited about this coming weekend?
Yeah, so I've looked some, or I guess one other player prop that I really like. So with the injury to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle is going to be getting a lot more work in Miami. I still don't think the market's kind of caught up to him being like wide receiver one down there. He went over 100 yards last week, and right now he's sitting at like 63 and a half. I just think that's too low for him, and I think he's going to be a pretty high value player to pick up in some fantasy leagues.
Okay. I think is it Malik Washington? Is that the other wide receiver that's
Yep.
there? There's been a lot of hype on some of the fantasy platforms that I listen to, and I don't think he gave you any points last week. I think didn't he have? I think he might have a big zero.
Yeah, he either had none or not many with it. I think
Yeah.
Waddle finished with 24, if I remember correctly. He had a
There were some
pretty
people
good week.
thinking that Waddle is just the wide receiver two, and he's always going to be the wide receiver two. And they had thought that Malik Washington had a profile that was somewhat similar to Tyreek Hill. No one's Tyreek Hill, but like similar as far as like
Yep.
small and agile and quick twitched and not so much. And honestly, the Dolphins from the start of the season seem like a team that's just been kind of like spiraling the toilet. And
Mm-hmm.
we've seen it just a little bit too quick in my book in regards to now with the Tyreek Hill injury. It's only a matter of time before it just continues just to unravel completely.
Yeah. Yep. And they're in a tough situation. Definitely.
I'm surprised Darren
And,
Waller decided to go to Miami
I don't know, he's had
after the trade and actually
yeah.
like play some games and look decent the last two
Yeah, no,
games.
he has not looked bad the last 2 weeks. That's about the rest of the player props outside of some of the touchdown scores. Dalton Kincaid, one I like this week. I've been on him
But don't tell
for the week.
Colton.
Okay.
He's a big Kincaid fan. Like, we don't want to give him too much hope here with Kincaid.
Yeah,
I've
and
always called him as like the Trey Burton 2.0. But Kincaid, he's had a quietly good season so far.
yes, and I don't know if he's gotten in the end zone. He might have gotten in once so far this year, and I think he has one coming up. And same thing with Cooper Kupp. He has not scored, or maybe he's had one. I know one of them had one, the other one didn't have any. But his targets have been going up over the last couple of weeks. I think he's going to get more involved, and he's finally going to get in this week. And if you parlay them all together, I think for what my model is saying, what the actual odds are compared to what you're getting on a sports book, it's worth an investment in.
And so when you're saying parlay, you're saying parlaying like Waddle yards over and then Kincaid touchdown prop and Cooper Kupp touchdown prop. Is that what you're saying?
It says I would put together the touchdown prop ones with it, and then I play the other props, more of the receiving, rushing yards, and that stuff a little bit differently with it. So like I might play, if you look at the Jalen Waddle ones, so he's at 63 yards right now is what they're saying. I might do something called like a ladder. So I might put like aside a unit and put like a half unit on the base number, and then take some at like over 75 yards and then some over 85 yards, and kind of play it like that.
Okay, can you describe that a little bit more? I'm not really familiar with that, and maybe our listeners may not be either. When you're saying about a ladder.
Yep. And so a ladder is when we look at, or I'll find someone who has, I think, a high value on their props. And usually it's looking at, it likes the over on either like pass yards, receiving yards, rushing yards, etc. with it. So if we use Waddle as an example, Like, so his over under is set at 63.5 right now, and I'm projecting him to get almost 90 this week. So I would place like a half unit of money on just that base total of like 63 with it. And then I might go up like 10 yards at like 75 yards and place like a quarter of a unit. And then I might go up to 85 yards and place 0.15, and then 90 plus yards like 0.1. So it's a one unit just kind of spread out. And the more yards
Oh,
he
okay.
gets, the more money you make from it. So essentially, if he just got like 66 yards this week, I would make my money back. I wouldn't make anything on it. But it's once he gets over that 75, that first like rung to the ladder going up, that you can start making money. And if he cashes all of them, then it's a pretty good chunk of change, because I think his over 90 yards is like 5-1 right now.
Yep. And so, Gabe, it sounds to me that you're kind of spreading out your risk. So instead of you're throwing the
Yes.
whole entire unit on the 99 and going for that home run hit, you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, you know what, there's a chance that it could be 99, but the chance is kind of slim. So I'm only going to
Mm-hmm.
put, you know, 0.1, 0.2 kind of on that 99,
Yep.
while the higher likelihood is maybe it's closer to like 70, 75, somewhere in there. And maybe I'll put a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more money towards that 70, 75
Correct.
range versus that
Mm-hmm.
99.
Correct. And I would say that in general is the key to like long-term success with sports betting. You can't put a bunch of money on high risk investments. It's not going to go your way. You might have one huge payday, but you're going to be losing a lot of money in the meantime with it. So I like all the risks to be calculated and things that I think I have a good edge on. And even when I have that good edge, I kind of like to build up to that and not risk it all on that home run and go for a single or a double.
Yep, gotcha. And
Mhm.
as long as you're getting those singles and doubles, you can continue to play on the platform. You can continue to
Yep.
play the game that is gambling for sports. And fantasy
Hmm.
football is really kind of a means to that as well. And that's just it. Like when you're making your trades, if you throw everything all in on a player and all of a sudden that player gets hurt, too bad, so sad. You got to
Yep.
spread out like what the risk is. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
putting it in, but maybe I'm getting a second back or a third back, and then you're kind of cutting your risk a little bit more when it comes to some of these trades. And you're kind of doing
Hmm.
that here with your gambling platforms in your Discord.
Yeah, but so everything in my Discord is very structured, and I put it in there like that for a reason with it. If you look at a lot of people that lose a bunch of money on betting, they're the ones that really have no system with it. They're just throwing whatever money they have on a game, and that you don't succeed like
Yeah,
that. Um,
throwing it at the wall.
yep.
So right now, as far as like tips from you, Gabe. So these are Gabe's tips. I've got a couple tips here that you had said. You said about the TD props, putting those together, making those being your parlays, spreading the risk, doing ladder type of bets. So that way you're not trying to just go for those home run hits. You're going for like the singles or the doubles, as you put
Yep.
it. And then finally, are there any other like tips that you'd have when it comes to sports betting?
It's really like the biggest one is just to have a system and trust it. A lot of things that, or something that a lot of people do, is they start to chase their losses if they have a bad week. And everyone who sports bets is going to have a bad week. It's impossible to be successful all the time with it, and you just have to stay disciplined with it. I've had weeks where I've won a bunch of money, and I've had weeks where I've lost a bunch of money. But the key is that a week after you lose a bunch, don't up your unit size and start betting more to try to make it back. You just got to trust your process and just kind of go through it. Betting is not something that you can make a profit fast. It needs to be slow and steady with it. And if you take that mentality, you'll have a lot more success versus if you just try to hit that home run every single time.
Yep. I think that's fantastic advice. And if you do have a betting problem, there are a lot of different forums,
Mm-hmm.
places that you can call, places that you can go in regards to that. Gambling can certainly be a big problem for some people. I know that I've had some people that I know that I'm very close to that do have gambling problems, and they do need
Mm-hmm.
help. And so if you do find that you're in that type of situation or know somebody that is in that situation, please try to help kind of like turn them towards places that they can get the help that they need. But for those that can kind of control their funds, these aren't the funds that you're just throwing your whole life savings on. You're not throwing
Correct.
all your money down. This is some of the money that you've budgeted for that you can kind of have as like your play money. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
betting the right way, as Gabe is describing to us, you're decreasing your risk, you're being smart about it, you have a system in place, you're using resources like
Mm-hmm.
Gabe's Discord that's right here in front of you to help kind of give you the edge when it comes to gambling. Then you'll be the success a lot more successful than just being the person that's just throwing just money away, and just kind of burning their own wallet.
That and so something I always tell people is like if you want to be like serious about it, like set aside an amount of money early on and just consider that money gone, and money that you don't plan on ever using with it, and then you need to use that money wisely with it. So like I always tell people to structure it in units, which is usually like 1 to 2% of the amount of money you set aside. So say you have like $1,000, like one unit would be $10 to $20, and that's just kind of like your base amount of money per bet. And it's going to prevent you from doing something where you're betting like $100 on a game right away. That's a quick way to just kind of burn through that money they have available, and it kind of helps you avoid that temptation to start throwing more money on top of that with it. And just understand early on, you might not be winning a ton of money from that, but you have to kind of build it up somewhere. As long as you stay consistent with it, that will come over time. It's just something you have to be patient with.
Yep. I think that's a good way that how you describe the units. Like you're taking like a percentage. It's almost like if you're doing like fab bidding on the waiver wire. If you have $100 of fab bidding, like it's saying, well, maybe for the wide receivers, I might be only doing about like a 3 to 5%, because maybe the odds of that wide receiver hitting is a lot lower versus maybe there's like a backup running back. You're like, ooh, now it's his time. Maybe I'm putting more like that 10% or more as far as units, knowing that, hey, I only have so much money each week. Those units start to decrease based on the percentage that you're using. So maybe I lost, $15 of that 100. I'm down to 85. Well, now that 10% isn't 10 anymore. Now it's 8.5. And is that basically kind of how you're using in the units?
So yes, so like I have my set amount of money I have set aside for like sports betting. And, like my size is 1% of that total money, with at least 1% at the start of the season. So since then, that amount of money has gone up, but my unit size hasn't changed. It's consistent at what it is with it, and that's another thing I recommend people to do, because if you get on a hot streak and all of a sudden your $1,000 is now $1,400, like if you get hot once, there's a chance you're going to cool off and probably lose some of that money along the way. And if you bump up your unit size too early, that's a good way to just lose all that money straight back with it. So that's another point I would like to make, is that I usually don't increase my unit size until I've doubled that initial money that I've started with. And then at that point, I would say it's an appropriate time.
Okay. So it sounds like, you're just being kind of consistent with your
Mm-hmm.
funds until you have at least doubled what you had put in to begin with.
Yep.
And then from there, you can reevaluate what makes sense for your betting market.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, everything has to be calculated and consistent with it. And I guess another like good point is like if we like look at unit size, like that doesn't mean every single one of my bets is like one unit. If there's something that I like a little bit more, I'm more willing to risk more units on it. But again, that needs to be calculated. It's not just, oh, there's a primetime game on tonight and I'm bored and I want a little bit more action on it, so I'm going to increase my unit size. It has to be a consistent reason why you do it every single time.
Yeah, and I think we see this in fantasy football too. You get the board player that just trades to trade, and next thing you know, their team kind of fizzles away. And then kind of here with the gambling, it's like if you start to get bored and you're just throwing your money to the wall, like you might turn around and say, "Whoa, what happened to my bank?"
Mm-hmm.
It could be just vanished in no time.
And I guess another thing to talk about, so I do some like parlay bets with it, but that is not the majority of my bets, just because they're higher odds with it. And so I have a separate little fund of money that I use for those. I call it like my for fun money. Those are usually bets that I don't expect to win, just because they don't win very often because they have higher odds on it. And usually every year I'll win like two or three of them. That's enough to kind of fund that whole year and make some money on top of that with it. But that's by no means a good way to source your bankroll as your season goes on with it. And so if you place a parlay, it needs to be calculated. It's not something that you just throw a bunch of things together before a game to make it more interesting, because you're going to lose that 99% of the time with it.
Gotcha.
So, and that's the reason if you like actually get on a lot of like the sport books and their apps, and they give out all these like profit boosts, they're all on the parlays with it, because they know not many of them
Definitely
hit,
are.
and you see that increase in odds for it, and it makes you want to place one, and that's how they make all their money.
It gets you excited, and then you're like, "Oh, I like this
Mm-hmm.
one. No, I like this one. No, I like this one." And I'll be the
Mm-hmm.
first to tell you, like, it's like some of those parlays look pretty enticing, and it's pretty easy to
Mm-hmm.
put a dollar here, dollar here, dollar here, and next thing you know, it's like I might have started with $20, but now I'm all of a sudden down to $10, and it's like, well, what just happened?
Yeah.
They're just raking in your cash.
Yep. That's why I like to be hesitant to place parlays, but like I do some of them. Like I don't. It's not like I don't do any of them, but I don't go crazy with them ever. And I think another good option for like if you do a lot of parlays, something called a round robin bet is another option, where it places a certain amount of money on every single combination of it. So like if I wanted to use like the 3 touchdown scorers example for this week, there's like Justin Fields, Dalton Kincaid, and like Cooper Kupp. So if I did like a round robin on it, it would place like Justin Fields and Dalton Kincaid together in a bet, and then Fields and Cooper Kupp together in a bet, and then Kincaid and Kupp, and then combine all three of them. So it'd be like 4 separate bets on it, just at a lower amount each. So that way, if 2 of them win, you don't lose all your money. You actually make some profit with it.
Gotcha.
And doing it like that, it decreases like that really high amount that you could potentially win if you just bet all that money on just the whole parlay itself. But again, for like long-term profit, you're going to be better off doing it like that because you can still return some profit versus losing whatever money you would put on that.
Well, and to me, and again, I'm not huge with betting in all these forums, but the round robin kind of sounds similar to like the ladder thought process, like you're controlling your risk.
Yes, it is exactly like that. And I know there's some people out there that don't like the round robins just because they have the thought that once you win one of them, like the amount of money you would win would kind of outweigh that risk reward versus being more conservative with the round robin. But I think for most people who have a limited bankroll and they're not dealing with a ton of money, that's the best way to go, just to conserve things. And also it makes it more fun with it. There's nothing worse than winning 2 of the 3 touchdown scores and you get nothing, but you lose your money and you're sad afterwards. At least this
That's
way,
generally what
there's some
happens when I'm
enjoyment.
trying to do these parlays. You know, you're going for the home run. You're like, oh, I'll put a couple bucks down here for like 5,
Yeah.
stacks, and you're like, well, I got 4 of the 5, and I didn't quite. If I would have just took this one off here, I would have won, like $50 or something. And it happens all the time. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so close, but then guess what? That gets you to do. Gets you to put more money in because
Yes,
look
it
how
does.
close I was. Oh, I was this close.
And you think you're onto something, so you feel more confident the next time. And yep.
Becomes a dangerous game.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for showing us your platform and your Discord. Again, check it out. It's here on YouTube. I've got the QR code available. I'll also have it available in the podcast information feed. You'll just be able to click the quick link. It'll take you right to Gabe's Discord. The Discord, we didn't talk about this. The Discord, it's the best part. It's free. You can go on and you can discuss. You can talk with Gabe. You can see what is Gabe betting on, and increasing your opportunities and decreasing your risk. And that's pretty much what we've just talked about for the last 20 minutes of this program is just being smart with your bets. And the first step is follow Gabe on the Discord. And don't forget to follow Gabe at Gabe is a Holt 33 on X. And again, I'll have that available also in the news feed for both the YouTube and on our podcast. Thanks so much, Gabe, for joining us today. Is there any last things that you'd like to say about your Discord? And again, this has been quite an opportunity for us to have you on the show.
Yeah, if you have any interest in getting into sports betting, I do recommend the Discord. On the top of each of the little channels that are off to the left, there is a little like paragraph that kind of breaks down that risk reward thing with the unit size as well. I know like the long shot lottos one, if you go to that one, there's a little blurb at the top. Where would it be at? Let's try to click on it. And then up at the top, it says channel used for high odds parlays and picks. Like following the units is like crucial with it. So if you don't know what you're doing, there is little tidbits that I have like placed in there already just to kind of give more guidance with it. Also in the Discord, if you just want to get in there and chat about sports, on the left side there says there's text channels. The one that's called the Rage Zone is where we just kind of get in there and just chat with one another. It is just a place to take out your rage for if you lose a bet instead of using this or going in and betting more money on it and trying to like chase your losses with it. It's just a fun place to get in there and chat. There's a lot of funny things that get brought up in there. So that's the Discord itself, again, everything's pretty structured in there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Yeah, the whole Discord platform, it looks really easy to navigate. Again, on the left-hand side, it's real easy. There's college football, again, it's in college basketball and the NFL. Those are the three main ones there that Gabe is looking for in regards to using the Discord for the betting platforms. Again, at the bottom left-hand side are those text channels, and so it looks like you can meet some pretty interesting people and maybe even make some
Yes.
friends, just like you would like in your fantasy football groups, teams, leagues. This is just another opportunity to kind of just share your wins and share your losses with the world.
Yep, and another cool little feature on the other side of it, there's something called chat plays. If you're in it and you have a bet of your own that you really like, you can place it in there. Let's say if you go up a little bit there, Dustin, we have one person that's very active with it, but it's a place that you can go in there and also place your bets as well if you have something that you really want to share with other people.
Do I see a JJ McCarthy over 300 yards on
Yes,
here in
you do,
August
and
28th?
if you scrolled way up in that Rage Zone chat, you'd see a lot of people making fun of him.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, and the rage?
Yep.
Oh,
It's
okay.
somewhere
Yeah.
way up there.
Hashtag never JJ McCarthy. He's not a guy that throws a football. And again, just
Nope.
a realistic Vikings fan over here. And I think the Vikings are in trouble.
Yeah. If you watched him back when he was in Michigan, I think he has the potential to just be your average quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be anything that's like too special. But I think he's a low ceiling, but also I don't think his floor is way down here. He's going to be somewhere just kind of in that safe range. I think eventually once he gets some experience.
I think he's going to be safely on our bench for the next week or two. We're going to be in a bye week this week, and I think they're going to be trying to throw out Carson Wentz for at least another week or two. We've got a pretty tough schedule coming up, and Carson Wentz, he's just kind of getting us by right now. The team just doesn't seem like it's clicking on all cylinders quite yet, and I know that we've had some offensive line problems as well, but we shouldn't have struggled as much as we did against the Browns, and it was really unfortunate that the Vikings lost to the Steelers there in Ireland.
Yeah, I thought they had a chance to come back at the very end. The end of that game should not have been as exciting as it was if the Steelers did a couple things right, but they made that game interesting.
Yep. Well, Aaron Rodgers, he knows the Vikings as well as anyone.
Yeah. Yep.
But thanks again, Gabe. We do appreciate it. Again, please check out Gabe Holt on his Discord. It's free. You can get some gambling advice, and I'm not sure. Do you guys talk fantasy football on there, or is it strictly gambling?
There is some fantasy discussion. There's also a tab. I do some of like the daily fantasy stuff if I have some pretty hard or like heavy leans that I really like that week that I'll post a lineup in every now and then. But a lot of it is just sports betting oriented with it.
Okay, so again, it just sounds like it's a Swiss Army knife Discord. Sounds like a lot of fun. Get to meet a lot of people. Get to communicate with our guy Gabe here, the gambling whisperer. We're going to call you here on the show, and we really appreciate your time here, Gabe. And thanks again.
Yep, of course.